Hi, I'm Miss. Today's video is going to be all about forgiveness. What is forgiveness? How to forgive. I use my 24-year marriage as trying to make examples of why unforgiveness is really bad. I'm going to tell you that I have finished videotaping all of it. I came back to tape the intro so that you would know it started out as a quick video under 30 minutes and it's turned into a series because I had to split it up. I wrote down everything and had no idea how painful that was going to be because my marriage ended 8 years ago, 10 years ago, but the divorce was 8 years ago. Really thought I had worked through all of it, and turns out I had not. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time. There is a lot more emotion in it than I anticipated, and I think you'll find some valuable things to help you going forward. Keep from having to keep unforgiveness from building up in your heart. So this is part one, forgiveness and why you should forgive. Do you realize that most of us struggle with forgiveness and don't even know it? Dealing with it could be the key to improving your life today. I had planned for my next video topic to be how to help you find your strengths, the importance of having a purpose. A quote, I ran across a quote that was about unforgiveness and how it impacts our lives, how it blocks more abundance in our lives, how it wreaks havoc with our lives. I started researching forgiveness and it made me start questioning myself. Do I have an unforgiving heart? Have I forgiven everything in the past, forgiven myself, forgiven others who have hurt me? Hurts can sometimes be intentional, sometimes they can be not intentional. They both hurt. They're both hard to forgive. They breed more and more unforgiveness in us if we let them go, if we don't deal with them properly. And the more I researched, the more I realized I have a lot still yet to forgive. I have forgiven a lot, I have worked through a lot, but I still have a lot to forgive. One of the steps to get to forgiveness, which I'll explain later, is the need to stop trashing and talking badly and negatively about the person who hurt you. It's an important step. And I struggled with how to use my previous marriage as an example without it coming across as negative and continuing to talk badly. I come to the conclusion I have to tell my story the way it is, the way I saw it, the way it happened for me, and try to use it as an example of what you can do differently, what you could do to keep from ending up in the same situation with unforgiveness. So I'm going to tell it as it is. Take from it what you want. You can either look at it all negative, or you can take it in the spirit that I'm intending it, which is to be helpful. The one question I got asked, because I talked with a couple of people who are close to me, the first question I got was, okay, you left your marriage almost 10 years ago and you've been divorced for 8 years now. So why now? Why now is this bothering you and you feel the need to work through it? My answer is, back in November of this past year, I started practicing meditation. And the woman I was learning from said that it is completely normal and expected for past issues, things that caused stress, negativity, past negativity. Every single thing you do bad to yourself or that others do to you ends up in every single cell in our body. And it stays there until you bring it up and out and deal with it. So that's the only thing I can think of that caused this to latch on to me like it did, and to really, no, that's not the only thing. The other thing is a gift that my daughter gave me a couple years ago for Christmas, and then an event that happened very recently, and I'll explain those later with my story, so you'll understand. So yeah, you're going to hear some negative, and in my need to be fair. This is my story. I have no doubt that my ex has a different story. I have no doubt he has a different perspective. Every single person seeing the same event can see it differently, have a completely different perspective. So just keep that in mind and be fair. And this is not about me wanting anyone to think badly of him or the others that were involved. I've worked through most of it, and I don't feel badly towards him anymore at all. My story is the foundation to help you understand the issues of how my unforgiveness developed and how I've had to deal with them and how I'm still dealing with them in the best way I know how. You might even get the impression that my story is coming from a place of regret, and no, it's not. And I know I look away from the camera a lot. I do that when I'm thinking and trying to remember what it is I want to say. I've also got notes because it's a long story, and I want to try to take things in order so that I don't ramble and run in circles on you, because I know your time's valuable. I know I say a lot. I'm trying to learn how to edit most of those out. I'll get better. So you might get the impression my story is coming from a place of regret, but the way I see it is it was a series of bad situations that led to bad decisions and a whole plethora of a buildup of anger and resentment and bitterness. So had I learned to deal with those properly from the very beginning, and that's really the message I want you to get from all this, to take issue with hurt feelings or slights or anything you feel is off or negative, and deal with it right then and there. Because when you deal with it properly, it doesn't breed more unforgiveness. It doesn't become more bitterness. It doesn't compound. My regrets, I do have regrets, but they are any actions of my own that hurt others. That's the regrets I have. Those are the things you can't take a word back once it's spoken. And I don't want you to get the impression that all my past unforgiveness issues are taken care of, they're fixed, and life's now perfect. My point is we will all have situations that, if not dealt with properly, just like I said, at the time of the event, they just develop into more unforgiveness in our lives. And while I'm using my previous marriage as my example to help me make the points, your issues with forgiveness may not have anything to do with a marriage or a living arrangement or a partner. It could be a coworker. It could be a good friend. It could be your neighbor. It could be your boss. Who knows? Take the things from my story and try to apply them into your own situation. And 24 years of marriage, and we were together 2.5 years before we got married. You're looking at close to 27 years. I can't put that, I can't get it all in. So I just tried to take the most important events, the most hurtful things, to be able to use as the example. So I'm just using a few examples, and then talking about the divorce process, because it didn't have to be like it was. It was completely all avoidable. So it's going to take more than one video, because I myself don't like to sit down and commit like an hour to watch something. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm just going to wait till it's done, go through the editing and chop it off, and hope I can fit it into maybe 2 or 3. Who knows? Maybe it'll fit in 30 minutes. I don't know, because all I've done is written it down. So we'll see. So I'm going to call it part 1 for now. I want to cover all aspects that I've learned about forgiveness. So number 1, what is forgiveness and what does it mean? Number 2, reasons why we need to forgive. Number 3, what is unforgiveness? Number 4, what breeds more unforgiveness? Number 5, examples of dramatic versus minor. there are really dramatic hurts that have been done to us, but a minor hurt will build just the same way as a dramatic event. So you just need to keep that in mind. You can still have the same negative feelings, whether major or minor. Don't feel bad that something that maybe seems minor to someone else seems dramatic to you. Only you can define what's minor or dramatic. They all need to be taken care of. Number 6, consequences and unforgiveness. To you and by you, there's consequences to unforgiveness. It's going to come back and bite you in the butt if you do not deal with these things, if you do not deal with them properly. Not just deal with them properly. Number 7, my story and how unforgiveness has affected my life. Number 8, what does it mean to truly forgive? I really didn't know till I started looking. You know, people say, oh, forgive and forget. Well, okay, that's not going to happen. And that's not even a true statement. Nobody, even if you have forgiven, can really forget everything. They're going to remember something. So don't expect to forget. What it means to truly forgive might surprise you. Number 9, how to know if you're dealing with unforgiveness. Sometimes we don't even realize we're still dealing with unforgiveness in our hearts. I really thought I had dealt with most of mine. I knew I still had a little bit, but I really thought I had dealt with more of it than I had once I started working on this. Number 10, how I'm learning to forgive. You can look it up on the internet. There are all kinds of websites and they all have different steps, but the theme is pretty much the same. So I basically just took all of those from the different sites and I took the ones that resonate with me, that made sense to me, that I felt would help me. And that's what I'm listing here and that's what I'm using. Number 11, ideas and thoughts to help you prevent future unforgiveness. Number 12, how to know if you've reached true forgiveness. It's important to note, these are all my opinions. You may not agree with them. You're just going to have to see if maybe something strikes a chord with you as well. Another thing to note, that you can repair relationships, but you can never restore them. When there has been a hurt, generally intentional, you can repair it, but you cannot restore it. Don't expect to restore it. And for me, the perfect example that I heard, I don't know where I heard it. I don't know who said it the first time. I'd give credit if I did. But if you just take a plain sheet of white piece of paper and you crumble it up into a ball, and just kind of squeeze it tight into a ball, and then you try unraveling it, try opening it up, try smoothing it down. Take something and smooth it down. You can even take an iron and try to smooth that thing down. You will never have a pristine, clean piece of paper again without wrinkles. Another example would be an aluminum can. We crush a beer can or a pop can and try straightening that puppy out again. Not going to happen. So it doesn't mean you can't repair a relationship and it be better than it was prior, but it takes work and it takes really understanding, forgiveness and mercy and loving each other and remorse, and all parties wanting the same thing, wanting to repair it. It can be done. I know of people that have done it, so keep that in mind. Issues that require my forgiveness that I've had to deal with. My 24-year marriage was pretty much doomed before the wedding march. And so there's many things. Number 1 was unreasonable jealousy. Number 2 was constant criticism. Number 3 was daily control and manipulation. 4 was infidelities. 5, extended family hurt. The emotional pain of our daughter, the emotional pain of our 3 boys. They were my stepsons. Lies, embarrassment, judgment from people I thought were friends. You want to know who your true friends are, just go through a difficult situation. I could really go on and on about what I've had to deal with, but those are the main ones. And just know that there were many more dramatic events and minor events that happened that are not going to list. I'm not going to list here. I'm not going to share them. Some things just don't ever need to even see the light of day again. But I've spent so much time repressing and suppressing and burying. I don't remember a lot of it. I think our mind does things to protect us. It's great. However, what happens is, at least in my case, things will happen that will bring a painful memory back to the surface that I didn't deal with previously, and that's no fun. That's really hard. So it's best to deal with them right in the beginning. When I was going through the divorce process, my dad asked me, what could you tell someone? What good piece of advice? What could someone have told you way back when, that would have helped all of us, my family, his family, all of us from going through the pain and the suffering of what we went through, to have avoided all of it? And I couldn't think of anything. I really couldn't think of anything at that time. The one big thing I'd like to say is know thyself. It's written on a temple somewhere. I have it written down. It's written on a temple somewhere. Know thyself. I did not know myself. I did not know what I want. When you go into a relationship or anything, business, it doesn't matter, and you don't have a clear picture, clarity on what you want, and you get clarity as you go, it might be completely different. But the main point is, when you're not clear about it, you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up for problems. So, to explain what I believe and feel about forgiveness and unforgiveness, and I can't take full credit for this. My best friend helped me with this visual, because visuals help me. You take an egg, and I want you to just picture an egg, and the shell. The shell of that egg is your control. That's what you control, is whatever's in this egg. And inside the egg, I want you to picture all the negative emotions that are in there. You're going to have resentment. You're going to have hurt feelings. You're going to have anger, ego, betrayal, fears, disappointment, regret. I'm sure there's more. I just not think of them right now. But you take all those negative emotions and you put them in this egg, and you put the shell around it. And now shake that egg and scramble it up, and you've got one heck of a recipe there for bad stuff. Really bad stuff. So the idea here is, let's crack the egg. Let's get that control, get your control back so that you're in control of it, not so that it's all right here. You want to get it out, you want to deal with it, and you do not want to have an egg with a bunch of negativity in it. So that's the best visual we can come up with, and that was honestly all her. I give her full credit for that. I think that was awesome. Each one of these negative issues in here, it's a negative emotion. And if left undealt with, they will just breed havoc, wreak havoc on your life. That's what you need to keep in mind when you're feeling negative, and you're feeling anger, and you're resentment, and you're pissed off at someone. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is about extending mercy to ourselves and others, whether we are deserving or not. That is, to me, the best definition of forgiveness. There is a universal law of forgiveness. Man receives only that which he gives. Life is boomerangs. Whatever you put out there, that's what's going to come right back at you. So if you expect to receive forgiveness from others, you've got to start with yourself. Forgiving others, forgiving yourself. That's where you start. Forgiveness is a clearing your mind of negativity and giving up the suffering from the past. Forgiveness is a deliberate decision you make to release bitter feelings or vengeance towards someone who has harmed you. True forgiveness happens when you stop wishing it had never happened. My dad actually was the one who heard that quote. Forgiveness happens when we stop wishing it had not happened. And if you really take the time to think about it, that is exactly what has to happen. You have to stop wishing that hurtful thing had happened. Because as long as you wish it hadn't happened, you're still going to feel the negativity. You're still going to be thinking, well, if I had done this, that wouldn't have happened. If they had done that, it wouldn't have happened. And if they were a better person, and blah, 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 blah. So when you get to the point where you're accepting that happened, you've accepted it. Nothing you can do to change it. You have to accept it. That's when true forgiveness happens. Here's what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not about pardoning a sin against you, or cutting that person a break, or dropping the charge. That's not what it means. It does not mean forgetting or excusing the offense. It does not mean you ever have to have that person in your life again. That's not being unforgiving. You know, sometimes people hurt us, and in their hurting us, they do us a little bit of a favor, because you see the real person and you realize that's just really not someone you want to be around. That doesn't mean you don't forgive them, but it doesn't mean you don't have them in your life either. That's a choice you have to make. Reasons why you need to forgive, and what is unforgiveness? Okay, there's health benefits to forgiveness. It lowers the risk of heart attack. It improves cholesterol levels. It improves blood pressure, anxiety, depression, and stress. It's worth it just for the health benefits alone. It makes us kinder. It makes us nicer. It makes us gentler. It makes us more compassionate. It increases our feelings of love and trust towards others. It frees us from past events. It increases our self-esteem and our inner strength. It allows us to move on in life with meaning and purpose. I mean, that's huge. That is all of it together. It's just huge. Forgiveness matters. And guess who the beneficiary is? You. You are the biggest beneficiary when you forgive yourself and others. I'm going to say that more than once. It's so important. You're the beneficiary. Remember that. Unforgiveness is the most prolific cause of disease. I found that in a book. I wish I could remember what book I found that in, but man, as soon as I read that, I'm like, I think that's probably right. Unforgiveness is holding on to past hurts. We don't want to let it go. Is part of it. We hold on to it like it's gold, and that's unforgiveness. All right, what breeds unforgiveness, and examples of dramatic versus minor. Unforgiveness, you may not understand what I'm saying when I say it breeds more unforgiveness. It compounds. Unforgiveness and I'll call it an event. It could be a hurtful word. Someone hurt your feelings. Someone made a comment that produces these hurtful feelings, and it will just compound if you don't take care of it right then, because the next time, there'll be a next time that something little will be said. These things compound and they grow bigger, and it breeds more because you've still got that from over there, and now you got this. Let me give you an example. Let's just say you're a woman and you meet the man of your dreams. He's perfect. He is the perfect. He knows how to run the sweeper. He knows how to wash dishes. He knows how to cook. He is kind to you. He loves your mama. He's perfect. And you get into a relationship, married, living together, doesn't matter. 3 years later, you're irritated. You're irritated because he's dropping his clothes on the floor right beside the hamper. And you've mentioned it several times. Oh yeah, I'll fix that. But he doesn't fix it, and you let it go. You stuff it down. You're still irritated, but you don't want to argue. So more time goes by. There's more little irritations that build up. And then you get to the point, say maybe 5 years later, suddenly it irritates you to watch them chew their food. It sends, you just grind your teeth when you hear them slurp their coffee. This is irritations, and it just breeds more irritations. If you had dealt with the first one, you're not going to care how they slurp their coffee. You thought it was cute in the beginning. So that's what I'm talking about when I say take care of things in the very beginning. So now imagine 10 years go by and nothing they do is right. You are so full of bitterness and resentment because they're not the perfect person you met. That your expectations, they let down. They let you down in your expectations, and now they want to fix it and you don't. You're done because your heart is so full of unforgiveness, it's just hard against them. Consequences of unforgiveness to you and by you, and my story and how unforgiveness has impacted my life. I want to relay my story, and I want to use it to illustrate how unforgiveness developed for me. Very similar to the little example that I just gave you, only a lot more dramatic. I also want you to know how it impacted others, because I was not the only one affected by my unforgiveness. When I started through the divorce process, my dad also mentioned to me, you need to be writing all of this stuff down so that someday you can write a book when it's all over. Because, he said, no one's going to believe it. They'll think it's fiction. A couple things I want to remind you about here, point out. We all need to know, and we all need to remember that hurt people hurt people. When you are hurting, you want to strike back. You want to make the other feel your pain. That is a natural instinct. However, we can control that, but just keep it in mind, because you then begin to see them as an imperfect person, and we're all imperfect. We make mistakes constantly, most of the time unintentional. So it helps you to begin to recognize we all carry wounds. This will help you in the forgiveness process. If you just remember that, and I'm going to say this over and over, hurt people hurt people. The second thing is, the best place to start is to forgive yourself. One way you forgive yourself, and it's really the only way to forgive yourself, is you have to know, and you have to feel remorse. Know that you did wrong. Feel remorse, and know you will never do that again. Ever. You won't. Forgive yourself. You learned. That's what life is. Life is about learning and expansion of our experience here on earth. The contrasts. Hurt people hurt people. I'm going to say it again. Okay. When I met my husband, I was 18 years old and he was 30. So there was a 12-year difference there. But I'm going to say I just was immediately infatuated with him. I just thought he was so attractive. He had an awesome smile, and he made me laugh. His laugh made me laugh. And he was just, I just saw him as such a manly man. And he had 3 young boys when I met him, and I was told by him that he and his wife were separated because, you know, of course she was a biatch. His boys were, I believe, 5, 7, and 9. And I just want to say right here, I hope every step-parent out there is as lucky as I was to have had boys like these as stepchildren. They were just outstanding. I can't say a negative thing about them. They were fun. They were intelligent, smart, funny, witty. They were just awesome. They're awesome men now. I somehow, 18, young and dumb, you know, believed him when he told me that he was separated. And I carried the guilt from the fact that he was not. I carried the guilt and had to forgive myself, because even when I found out that it wasn't true, I continued with the relationship. I made excuses for him because I loved him. And I wanted to believe. We want to believe the people that we love. We want to believe what they say. We got to learn to start paying attention to those little niggles, our intuition, the gut feeling. Something just doesn't feel quite right. We need to learn to develop our intuition. It is our 6th sense. So I have found, personally and from others, that when a relationship starts wrong, the odds are pretty good it's going to end wrong. The odds are pretty good there's going to be a lot of turmoil. So if you're starting a relationship, it's wrong if they're married. It is what it is. Don't start off on the wrong foot. And I don't mean that they have to have the divorce papers in hand, but God, they at least need to be not living together. You know, don't tell me you're living in the basement and she's living upstairs. Anyway, young and dumb. I was young and dumb. That's how I have forgiven myself for the things I did when I was young and dumb, because that's a pretty good thing to forgive yourself for. I interpreted jealousy and his controlling behavior as he loved me. You know, that possessiveness must really love me. I had never dealt with that before. I had such good parents, and I'm not saying they didn't have problems, but they worked through their problems. We didn't hear them argue, hardly at all. But that was like a red flag. You'll hear me talk about red flags a lot. I'm going to do a video on red flags at some point, because red flags are important. Red flags, they come from that little intuition inside of us, and they kind of start waving, and excuse we excuse them, we justify them, we try to ignore them, we bury them, we brush them back. We don't ignore red flags. They're very important, because I came to learn later that jealousy and insecurity most of the time comes from their own guilty conscience, and their own insecurities. And people who are not secure in themselves and they are looking for a partner to fulfill that and make them feel secure, they're not a good partner. You want someone who knows themselves. You want someone who is secure in themselves. Things are going to be so much better for you if you wait for that, if you look for that. I excused his critical remarks against my parents. He was older than me. I believed he was smarter than me. I believed he knew more than me. He had more experience. I excused it. I did not realize in the beginning that it was because the jealousy wasn't just to other men. The jealousy was anyone I was friends with or close with, and my family. He was so jealous of my family. That was a red flag. As I said, we dated 2.5 years before we got married, and I had gut feelings. I had gut feelings before the wedding. Things aren't right. I'm not liking certain things. I was really starting to notice the red flags, and a month before the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. And I know that's not as big a deal now, but 34 years ago, that was a big deal. And I wasn't a strong enough person. It just didn't even really enter my mind to be an unwed mother. In my mind, that cemented, okay, I'm doing the right thing here, getting married. As I said, there was 3 little guys involved who were awesome, and we were very lucky that they did have a good mom. There was none of this, you get the kids every other weekend. I don't know how people consider that parenting at all. I don't get it. We were so fortunate we were able to get them every Friday evening as soon as they got out of school until Sunday evening, and they would go home and then go to school. He was so good about sharing them, and she put them first and what was good for them instead of herself and the fighting. And I admire how quickly she got over her bitterness from her divorce. I just admire her. And, obviously she was an awesome mother because they were such great kids. So I was very lucky there. Things were going really good. My parents moved right about the time I got married, and they moved, we were in Ohio, they moved to Florida. So that was a huge difference. And it was tough going through a pregnancy without my mom close. And when I had my daughter, I mean, as soon as I went into labor, they headed to Ohio and made it after she was born. But, with being in Florida, they couldn't just come for a day or two visit. When they would come to visit, they would come for a week or two to make the trip worth it. And my husband was just not nice to them. My mom, everyone that knows my mom knows how baby crazy she is. I mean, when my mom was a kid, all she wanted to do was grow up, get married, and have babies. And she loves babies. They don't even have to be her own babies. They can be a stranger's baby, and my mom makes friends with the mother so she gets to hold the baby. So it's painful for me that my husband was so selfish with our baby daughter. There was an event where she was a few days old, and my mom and a friend came over to visit her because my mom was staying with a friend because we really didn't have the room, and she came to visit. He took the baby and went and hid in the bedroom with her. And doesn't matter now. That is an example of where I should have stood up. I should have stood up and said, no, not going to do this. You're not going to be selfish with our baby. You are not going to treat my mom bad. From there, I started to really, at times, recognize the feelings he had for me were not healthy. That is, obsession is not a healthy love. When you have to control everything your partner says and does and what they do and how they think and how they feel, that's not healthy. That's not my definition of love. But I can tell you, for a long time, I thought that is what it was. I thought it was love. It's not. You need to be your own self. You need to be your own person. Marriage does not mean someone owns you. They don't have the right to invade your privacy. They do not have the right to know every thought in your head.